We now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 brands. This is the message to Sundar. We've talked about this, you and I.
Okay.
Branding at Google is challenging. It's challenging. You call it Google Bard. A much better idea would have been to take the YouTube approach and just call it Bard and get the domain name bard.com and let people go to bard.com and have a completely unique verticalized experience without the Google branding.
Yeah.
And then nobody needs to know about DeepMind. Nobody needs to know about Gemini. It's just Bard.
Yeah.
And Bard is a new product from Google.
Yeah.
The end.
This Week in Startups is brought to you by Embroker's Startup Insurance Program helps startups secure the most important types of insurance at a lower cost and with less hassle. Save up to 20% off of traditional insurance today at Embroker.com/twist. While you're there, get an extra 10% off using offer code TWIST. Squarespace. Turn your idea into a new website. Go to squarespace.com/twist for a free trial. When you're ready to launch, use offer code TWIST to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. And Northwest Registered Agent. When starting your business, it's important to use a service that will actually help you. Northwest Registered Agent is that service. They'll form your company fast, give you the documents you need to open a business bank account, and even provide you with mail scanning and a business address to keep your personal privacy intact. Visit northwestregisteredagent.com/twist to get a 60% discount on your next LLC.
All right, everybody, welcome back to This Week in Startups. Let's get to work. It's Monday. That means it's a Madra Monday. My guy, Sunny Sandeep Madra. People don't know this. He's one of my besties. When I go skiing, every season, Sunny and I do a bit skiing. We love to hang.
On the lifts. We talk on the lifts.
We have talks about life, parenting, business, everything.
You blast down the mountain. I think your high speed is far faster. I think my highest ever was 40.2 miles per hour, and you blew past that.
I am slowing down. I don't want to tempt fate here, but the 54 mile per hour record is not a record I want to repeat. We got old man bones. We got to keep it under 50. Under 50.
Do not do it again.
So yeah, but this year I'm going for it. This year I've set a target of 50 days on the mountain.
50.
50. But I like to go for 2 hours a day. You and I like to go out. We do a little bit. We have a cocktail. It's that pre-ski end of day. We get that little, spiked beverage. Not bad for the old bones. I like it. And I'm not a drinker, but there's something about that, little something at the end of the day, little Kahlua in the coffee. But let's get to work here. Everybody loves Mondays. Mondays is our AI Mondays. And I want to just announce that for 2024, we're locking this in for the entire frickin' year.
Oof.
52 episodes next year of the AI Mondays with Sandeep Madra. And we're actually selling the ads specifically for Monday. So if you're an AI company, you can talk to our partnership team or email me, jason@calacanis.com. There's only 3 ads every Monday. So if you get one of those in your Hugging Face or your AWS or something, you wanted to reach people who are obsessed about AI, we're going to make this the greatest AI habit that anybody who's an AI developer, startup, or investor has to come every Monday to listen to this. And you've been getting great feedback.
Thank you. It's been really fun. And honestly, it helps me in my day job. And it basically is, really insightful. I even went and did a little session with our other bestie, Chamath.
Oh, yes.
You
were pushing code with Chamath.
We did.
He was standing next to you. You guys did pair programming. I love it.
We did pair programming. Yeah. He was on the keyboard. I got to give him credit. So it was really good.
It. It's a nice thing to do. I don't have the head for programming. It's like a little too much focus and, I get distracted or whatever, my ADHD, but I do like the idea that you help me sort of pop it up and learn about it.
We'll do one. We'll do a pairing session in 2024.
For sure. Actually, we should do it on the air. That would be fun for people. All right. But you know what? Everybody loves to come here to watch us and listen to us do these AI demos. So if you're listening, no problem. We're going to explain what's happening on the screen, why it's important. If you're watching, great. Go to youtube.com/thisweekin. And then you can just hit the videos and you'll find a playlist there. My team made a playlist for the AI Mondays. So you just look at the playlists. You find that playlist. You can watch all the demos and you can see, even if you missed a couple, going backwards is a great idea. So we're entering year 2. Consider this year 2 of the AI revolution in terms of ChatGPT 3.5
November 30th was the 1-year birthday. Yeah,
perfect.
Exactly.
Happy birthday, everybody. Congratulations. And, the big news, obviously, was Google has a bunch of new updates. So we'll talk about that today. I see in the notes.
Yes.
But what do you got first? What's on first? What's our first demo?
Well, I want to start with, it kind of got lost in the shuffle, and I think it's a really, really cool product, and it's called NotebookLM.
I know about this. This is a product by Steven Johnson, who is a writer who I knew from New York. He's written a ton of books. Stephen Berlin Johnson is a writer, and there is a tool, I think it's called Scrivener, that is a writing tool that like Tim Ferriss might have gotten into and he was into. Okay. So when you're writing a book, you probably have 20 different sources. Let's say you're writing a book like Malcolm Gladwell does, like The Tipping Point.
Yeah.
You might have 20 different sources of information, right? And they write these kind of meta books where they read 20 studies and then try to make an overarching thing. So what's very interesting about this is I was on this product this weekend because I saw a Wired story about it trending in the news, and I played with it this weekend. So this is great. Okay.
The Google product.
The Google product, NotebookLM, is a book for, it's basically, like I said, I think it's Scrivener is the product. Yeah. And Stephen Berlin Johnson, I remember him from New York, really cool cat. He's at a Netflix show. He's written a dozen books. He's like a real old school Wired guy, like a Gen X Wired guy.
Yeah, yeah.
And so this is a tool based on my understanding of it to help you collect lots of thoughts and then make sense of them, perhaps in a book format or whatever it is.
Yeah. So look, I think you nailed it. And what Google's done, and I've kind of, started this demo here is, and I wasn't thinking about it in the context you talked about, which is interesting because you and I just bring different perspectives, but I think about this as a collaborative space. If you've got a document or something, and what, Google's done an excellent job of, we want to keep giving them credit. Here, I can add documents by uploading them, but I can also grab stuff from my Google Drive.
Got it. Okay, so we're looking at an interface. It's almost like a whiteboard in front of you, or like, would you say a con board where you're putting like little objects, boxes?
Yeah, I think so.
And on the left, you upload your source material. The source material is typically copied text, a PDF, or something on your Google Drive. So that could be a Google Sheet or a document. Amazing.
Yes. And you add those in, and then once those are in, you can start a chat and you can say, tell me about this NDA. And I just uploaded the definitive mutual NDA. And basically it will, start to do its analysis, using the LLM. And it'll explain, I just asked it here, like, tell me about this NDA, and it explains, what it's for. And I can ask, like, is this a mutual NDA? Yeah. How can I be sure? Right. And then, it'll give me,
I like that question.
You can also do the sharing. So you can add people to this notebook.
So you could add me right now. Gotcha.
So I can add you to the notebook, and then we can kind of collectively jam on this. And then I can add notes to this. And I think sort of the use case you're talking about is a little bit different, but I like it as well. And, if you go back into the kind of and this is a good job of what they've done. They have some example notebooks here where you can kind of see, how to use it. And so this is a little bit more like what you're talking about, like a bunch of notes and other things that are leveraging.
Right. So on the left here, let me describe it. In this one, they have an announcement, a letter from the CEO, pros and cons of, I guess, a product, some product specs. So if you were thinking about a project, and a project had a collection of documents, everybody says, I want to create a language model. But you don't want to get a developer and Hugging Face, Replit, whatever. I may just want to take 20 documents that my team's worked on. So here are the 20 documents about Project Condor, whatever we're doing at the company. Could be an acquisition, could be an investment. And I just very simply upload those 20 documents. And it could be the pitch deck from the founder. It could be the deal memo internal, deal memo external, last deal memo for this. Let's say that we were doing an investment deal or an acquisition. Project Condor was, Google acquiring YouTube. You might put all this different information in here, and then people can ask questions. But when they get asked the question and they get the answer, all of those become little notebooks in this shared space. So I can see what you're asking the LM. I can ask the LM, and then we both get the benefit of those queries. Am I correct?
100%. What I really love is you can basically also then use kind of LLMs to ask about the documents like I was doing in my example, right? And I can kind of build on that. And so I think that's really powerful. I think this is a really nice interface, done super clean, collaborative. I like integration into the Google ecosystem. So I'm going to start out and I'm going to give this one like an A-. I think improvement is basically give it more sources here beyond sort of these. And it's really up there. There's not a lot more they can do. I want to start using this kind of in a work process for things. And I like it. I think it's a great tool.
I like it. I give it a B. I think it's pretty straightforward right now. It's a little confusing until you look at the examples of what you would use this for. But I think we gave you 2. If you're writing a book, if you're doing an M&A acquisition, if you were doing a term paper, I could see you using this. If you were working on a project, in graduate school or, a term paper with a study group, you might put all your notes of each week's notes in here. You might put every chapter of the books you're reading. So let's say you were doing, I don't know, a cinema studies class. I might put in the script, and we were doing Japanese film studies. I might put all the Kurosawa scripts in here. Perfect example. I might put Kurosawa's biography in here. And that was the first thing I was thinking was, I want to put some books in here. But there's a limit, I think, to the size of it. And then I was like, wait a second, how do I get a book in here? Because they're all locked down with digital rights management, DRM. So I was like, so how do I get something like a biography? What I wanted to do with this was take all my favorite business biographies, put it in there, and be able to query my top 10 business biographies or 50 business biographies. But I can't do it. I have to get a pirated copy, like a PDF of it. Now, I don't know ethically, how you would do that. All right, listen, we work with startups and they are all over the map. Most of them very early stage, pre-seed, seed, going on to their Series A. But some of our investments have gone on to raise those late stage funding rounds. They've gotten acquired. Hey, and a number of them have gone public. And there is one thing that unites them all. They need to have their business insurance tight if they want to succeed. This is obvious. A lot of founders ignore it, and they ignore it at their peril. If it's not tight, it's not right. And we need tight and right. And we send them to Embroker. Embroker is business insurance built specifically for startups. Their single application helps startups get 4 quotes for 4 lines of coverage in just 15 minutes. Embroker. They'll connect you with one of their expert brokers for unmatched service, and it goes beyond your policy. They'll make the process painless and transparent, especially when you compare them to the incumbents, which are slow. So try Embroker today with the code TWIST and get 10% off. There are already amazing prices. Their startup package, embroker.com/twist. EMBROKER.com/twist and use the code TWIST for 10% off. We love Embroker. Thank you for all the amazing support over the years, both on this program and the love and care you give to our startups. Let me ask you a morality question here. And this, let's say we had a friend, not me, not you, but we had a friend. The friend said, I have an ethical question for you. I've bought these 50 business biographies. I also see, if I do a search of Google Drives on the web, that something like an autobiography or Born Standing Up, Steve Martin's great one, or, Shoe Dog somebody has the Shoe Dog PDF in a Google Drive, right? You can just search site:/drive.google.com for any PDF and you'll find every copyrighted PDF if you want them. And I don't suggest you do that, and don't steal my book, go buy it. Support authors, buy everybody's book. But let's say I bought all 50 books and then I put my top 20 in Google Notebook from the web where I found them without DRM on them. Is that morally and ethically acceptable to you? Not saying you do it, but what would you tell your friend? Gray zone, okay?
So here's how I think about it. It's like the time of music sharing before we had iTunes. Mm-hmm. So, and I participated in like downloading music because it was the only way to get digital music.
Right.
But once iTunes came around, I've been using it probably since 2002. It was around very early. And I've been using it because, I think artists should be compensated for their work. And I'm happy to pay them because that's how the ecosystem works. And so I would say until that type of functionality is available in Apple iBooks or Kindle or other places. Because, I bought it and I want that functionality and the company's not making it available. So I feel like it's okay. I think the minute those platforms offer that functionality, then I should do it correctly. That's kind of how I would think about it. That's how I feel
about it. You should be able to. So this is just for Stephen Berlin Johnson, I believe is his name. It's been 20 years since I've seen him. Cool cat. Hey, Stephen, come on the show. Would be really cool if you could press a button there, and instead of upload from PDF, it said sync with Google, Apple Books, sync with Amazon Kindle, sync with Audible. Like, why can't I just sync and put those things in there? That'd be an incredible feature. And so it should be allowed. And so until it's allowed, I would tell my friend, I'm okay with it. I'll allow it. The spirit of the law is you bought it. You should be able to do what you want with it. This is why I may start going back to buying Blu-rays, just to not go on a total tangent here. But I feel like, when sometimes the internet's down, or I'd like to have physical copies of like the top 100 films that, are rewatchable or whatever to have.
Yeah.
And, then trade them with friends and stuff like that. Because you can't trade your digital library. So if you buy a movie, I can't like just give it to you, whatever. And then they have all these cool things like the director's cuts and the audio tracks. And can't find those online. Like if I want to listen to the director's commentary, I can't find the director's commentary on Apple. It's not there. So anyway, this is a really cool thing. So it's called Google NotebookLM.
Google NotebookLM, correct.
Go search for it. It's pretty cool, I have to say. And they should actually, what they should do is Google has Google Books for all the books that are, and magazines and stuff like that. They have all that stuff there. So it'd be very cool if they connected it to their magazine and newspaper archive, and you could put the New York Times in there and pull New York Times archival stories or whatever. So if I have a New York Times subscription, why can't I add that to here, and just add a couple of New York Times stories? That's another thing I'm constantly doing, is trying to take a New York Times story or a Financial Times story and share it with a friend or discuss it with a friend. And it's just like so many roadblocks. It's so hard.
Yeah. I think the New York Times gives you like a little gift thing now where you can gift a couple of articles, but I think it's like maybe 5 a month or something. I don't even know what it is.
That is helpful. So I think that's a nice pressure cooker to take it off. I do like also putting stuff in Speechify, which now has Speechify Studio. I saw that for the first time this week, where you can create your own voice and then you can read to yourself news stories. So you can train your own language model with Speechify Studio. We'll show it next week. But you could make like a JCal voice from this podcast and then have me read your news to you, I guess.
Yeah.
And train your own audio voice. Okay, let's keep going.
I took a note for it. Okay, so Bard has been updated with Gemini Pro functionality, I believe.
Whatever that means. So now they have Google DeepMind, Google Bard, and Google Gemini.
Yes.
What's going on here with the branding, Google? Tell me explain to the audience the difference between those three things, just so we can level set here.
Okay, well, DeepMind and Brain were 2 independent teams inside of Google that have been merged into a single team. That's
now called DeepMind. DeepMind is the remaining brand. That's their AI team.
That's their AI team now. And
that's like saying, that's equivalent of saying OpenAI.
It's equivalent of saying OpenAI. Yes, correct. And historically, those 2 teams had different approaches and they came from different worlds. DeepMind was an acquisition that Google did years ago that actually led to some of the fallout between Elon Musk and some of the Google founders.
Yep.
And, some of the key folks that were involved in the drama with OpenAI this week, Ilya in particular, was a DeepMind person that was recruited out to come to OpenAI. So it's very kind of some important details. Those 2 teams now have created a new model, a multimodal model. We've started talking about these. We've used them. And that model is called Gemini. And Gemini comes in 3 different versions. And those 3 different versions basically are different size parameters, which have different capabilities. And Pro, which is the middle size model, is now available for use inside of Bard. And on an API level, it's going to become available on Wednesday. So if you're working with Google Cloud, you can use it as an API, like so the same way you can build things on top of OpenAI and ChatGPT and GPTs. And then Ultra, which is the kind of the most advanced model, they said will be available in early 2024. Okay, does that help?
Yes. We have the DeepMind team. That's the group inside of Google. The consumer product is called Bard. Now, Bard is a way for them to say, hey, this isn't Google search. This is a different experimental product. It's going to hallucinate. Click here to understand you shouldn't base your medical decisions or financial decisions based on Bard. Bard's an experiment. Then Bard uses an underlying technology called Gemini. Gemini comes in 3 flavors. Nano, Pro, Ultra.
Yes.
So we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 brands. This is a message to Sundar. We've talked about this, you and I.
Okay.
Branding at Google is challenging. It's challenging. You call it Google Bard. A much better idea would have been to take the YouTube approach and just call it Bard and get the domain name bard.com and let people go to bard.com and have a completely unique verticalized experience without the Google branding.
Yeah.
And then nobody needs to know about DeepMind. Nobody needs to know about Gemini. It's just Bard.
Yeah.
And Bard is a new product from Google.
Yeah.
The end.
Well, Microsoft nailed this too with the naming Copilot, which, you know, we had a little private chat where we were sharing some names and ideas, and we said, Copilot is the way to go.
It's the simplest, and nobody can own that. So Google Copilot would have been a better name for this. They just call it Copilot. But you know what? Google's strength is in the underlying technology. Their weakness is in branding and often in UX. And the problem I have with Bard right now is there's no app, right? There's no Google Bard app. And the interface is just, I don't want to say it's terrible, but it's like I'd say the UI is like a 5 of 10. And I feel like ChatGPT is like an 8.5.
Yeah. Well, now, can I say one thing not to
Please.
Google's defense, but like very similar in branding and naming? We have OpenAI, we have ChatGPT, and we have GPT 3.5, GPT 4, GPT 4V.
Sure.
So they've kind of taken the same flavor.
Consumers, but they didn't have a legacy brand of Google, right?
They didn't.
So there is no legacy.
Correct.
And so they can start from a little bit of a cleaner position. People know ChatGPT. They don't really know OpenAI. No, they really don't care about the version numbers. You just search for ChatGPT. This is why Google, you should just search for Bard. And then all they should say is, Bard lets you do this. You can use Bard for this. You can use Bard for that. And then, when you go to the dev day, they can talk about all the underpinnings. But the consumer should just experience Bard. And Bard should have a logo. And it should be bard.com. This is why Google Plus failed. I don't know why Google keeps doing the same mistake, which is putting things as like a subtopic under the word Google. YouTube is your biggest success. It is an independent, strong brand with its own domain name. Google Plus got lost because it was plus.google.com. It should have just been called plus.com. And you went to plus.com and you had that experience.
Yeah. Fascinating.
So here ends the branding lesson. You have to get this right, Google. Please,
maybe a better name than Bard too. Because like no one knows what a Bard is.
I mean, yes, I agree. I mean, they should have just bought chat.com. I would have just bought chat.com. And you know who bought it? Dharmesh. I think bought it for $1 million over at HubSpot. Yes. And the huge mistake.
Wow. Oh my God. I mean, for Google, that's like 1 millisecond of search.
Can you imagine if they just had chat.com and it'd be like, hey, if you want to chat, go there. Or AIchat.com or AI.com.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, there's so many different ways to do this, folks. But the way Google does it is always a mistake. There's no branding person there. And Nest had a great branding team. And then you screwed it by having the Google team shoehorn it into and break it into Google Home. There should be a 5-alarm fire. Actually, you know what? This is a Sergey thing. Sergey, find somebody who you trust, who's your Johnny Ive. I heard Sergey's in there writing the code, right?
Yeah.
Sergey needs a Johnny Ive.
He was the one that pushed for the release, apparently.
Oh, really? Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. Saying, hey, we've got to put this out.
I like Sergey after dark. I like
billionaires writing code. We have Chamath and we have Sergey.
I love it. Samurai Sergey. That means worth $100 billion. He's writing code. I have so much respect for Samurai Sergey.
Oh, I like the
Samurai Sergey.
Like
he's in the game.
Oh yeah.
But this is a message. Awesome. Somebody send this message to Samurai Sergey. I know him. Jake Howe.
Okay.
Samurai Sergey, please hire your Johnny Ive, find a branding person, and stop taking Google's innovations and wrapping them in bad UX. This is a place to invest. Like literally just find 10 great designers, put them in a room. Don't let anybody near them.
Well, I think Johnny Ive has a studio now. He could just acquire it.
Yes, go give Johnny Ive $1 billion and have him come in for 10 hours a week. He'll do a better job than the Google team. No offense, all respect to the Google team.
Yeah, they're doing a bunch of work for like Silicon Valley companies, like a little bit of a design studio. Yeah, design studio. Just buy them.
Okay, easy breezy. Okay, let's keep going here. Because I'm in Bard right now, and I asked Bard, is Bard using DeepMind's Gemini? And it said, yes, it is using it. So
what I want to do here, Jay Cal, is I want to give the Ars Technica guys a little bit of a shout out because they put together a really world-class test bed. And I'm going to show some of these, but I just wanted to touch on this. But they did a great comparison between original Bard and updated Bard and ChatGPT. And so they have a lot of examples in here. And, I've kind of picked on a couple of them for our demo here. So I wanted to give these guys a shout out. They did a great job. And so one of the ones that I found that was incredibly interesting from that example was, and I think you'll like this, which is I gave it some text to summarize. And it was a bunch of text that I just copied from an article.
Got it.
What it was able to do was it was able to, and this was sort of the article here. It was like an AI generated video of Will Smith eating spaghetti. And basically what Bard was able to do was tell me, what this was about, and was also able to link me to the original article. And I think that's really powerful because one of these things about attribution is going to be, I think, really important with respect to understanding the ground truth of things and also perhaps monetization in the future. So this is one of the enhanced powers of Bard in that when you give it text from the internet, it will, summarize it and then use Google's vast knowledge base to kind of pull in the original source of that content.
So 2 things you're pointing out here. One, attribution. This is something we've talked about. Who should get credit for this? You took a cut and paste of the text from an article, did not give Bard the URL. It then found the URL and gave proper credit to it. So all of this, like, the LLM, we could never undo it. We could never give attribution. That is absolute BS. AI has a very easy time doing attribution. And so this entire concept that we don't know how it came up with the answer, I call BS. You can obviously figure that out. And then, so that's great for 2 reasons. One, it's fair, and it'll probably get you around a lot of issues of a lot of lawsuits. But number 2, monetization. If this sends traffic to the original article gets to get some money, which is the very delicate balance Google made with content creators. Hey, if you index it, we're sending you traffic. If we send you traffic, you can figure out how to monetize it on your site. You could even use our ad network if you like, or somebody else's. So it's worth giving us the snippet, just a little bit of the content to put in, to give people a preview. And so much so that they even did those one box where they kind of gave you a more specific section and that might give you the answer. And content providers were like, you know what? I'll let you do it, Google, because net, I get 1/3 of my traffic from Google or half of my traffic from Google, whatever the website's doing. So I think those are 2 very good reasons, and it plays to their strength. They now know because they have that corpus of the web crawl. So very, very good points.
Yeah. And so I thought like really good example and, touches on a bunch of things that could really put Google in a good position with content creators all over the internet. And attribution, which has driven much of the internet business for the last few years.
Love it.
Okay. So that was like sort of the first example I wanted to touch on with Bard, which I thought was really good.
If your landing page looks terrible, I'm out. We all know that. You see an ugly website, you skedaddle, you leave, you're done. So you need to stop settling for okay or good and start using Squarespace so you can be excellent and extraordinary. It's an out-of-the-box business solution to build beautiful websites, engage your audience, and sell anything you want. You know Squarespace's amazing features, gorgeous templates that are always optimized for mobile, drag and drop web design with their fluid engine, advanced analytics, marketing analysis, sales data, and more. And with Squarespace, you can create an online store or start a blog at the click of a button, create a subscription business for members-only content, and so much more. And you can do this all simultaneously. It's the simplest, most effective, and best-looking way to start a business online. So here's your call to action, squarespace.com/twist for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/twist for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
Another example, which I thought was really powerful, was its ability to go deeper in its responses. And so, this is something, talking about like an era that, you were probably closer to this stuff back in the 2000s, but like PowerPC versus Intel processors. This was a big debate when Mac was switching over to, the Intel-based processors. And so it's able to just kind of dive into much more detail than before. So if you asked this question in a previous Bard, it just wasn't as powerful. And so you can basically, what you can kind of glean from this is they've done a good job of just increasing the amount of material that's used in its training, such that it's just has a deeper knowledge set. It's not as surface level. A lot of times before, Bard was a little bit surface level, and that's called out there. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So look, there's a kind of a few of these improvements that they've done. These are kind of the more interesting ones. Other ones are a little bit subtle, like it's better at jokes and things like that.
I thought the thing that was most important was, for me, multimodal looked very, very interesting. And there was a couple of video demos. Maybe we could do a reaction to a video here.
So the video is going to play here, and they're going to show some capabilities. What they were showing here in this video for the folks listening is someone on a sticky notepad drawing pictures and then increasingly adding detail to the pictures and Bard responding to it. And so this is really interesting because what it made it seem like was Bard was able to watch video and then in real time explain what it was seeing.
Yes.
What was subsequently shared by Google.
It was sportscasting what was happening. So when you drew it, it was like, oh, it's a scribbly line. Then you drew it a little more, and it was like, well, that looks like a bird. Oh, because it's got a duck, because it's got a bill, it's a duck. It's in the water because you just drew some water. And it's a blue duck, which really doesn't exist. So it was like really giving a commentary in real time of what's happening.
Yes, and this is very powerful. There's some criticism around and controversy, I'd say more criticism, was that nothing is faked in this video from a sense of that, the answers are coming from Bard, but the interface to Bard was not a real-time video. So what they were doing was they were taking pictures, they were giving them to Bard, and then Bard was replying with the answers on the right-hand side, but the interaction wasn't real-time video.
Got it. So they faked a bit of the demo for dramatic effect. What it really was static images. So they were just showing essentially one Post-it note at a time.
And it would say, hey, what is this? And they would come back and say, this looks like this. And what is this now? And what is this now?
But the truth is, they probably could build this in a weekend. So Sergey's probably coding it right now just to dunk on everybody, and they'll release it in the next version.
You know what? I was going to say that is the best way to kind of, demystify everything is actually just have Bard do it with video. And at the end of the day, take screenshots of the video along the way and submit them to Bard and have it answer the question.
I had something similar to this happen when I was watching Han Solo on a long distance flight. I clicked the wrong version, and the version I listened to was for people who were blind.
Okay.
And it described what was happening on the screen. And it's like, Han Solo jumps into a speeder. This person jumps in with him. They speed off into an alleyway. They turn. Now they're being chased by 3 people. And it was explaining, there was a narrator describing what was happening on the screen, and there was still the sound effects, the dialogue. And I was like, I didn't know that existed in the world. There is, and there must be a technical name for it, but there is a technical name for like a commentary track that's describing what's happening on screen. Now you think about that. We could take any video, and if somebody was blind, you could play a music video for them. Obviously, they can listen to the song. But you could have a narrator describe what's happening on the scene, and the person could say, give me more detail or less detail. Or pause the video, tell me what's happening, and then restart it every 30 seconds or whatever at every milestone. So they could say, okay, wow, I'm going to pause here. Now Britney Spears comes onto the scene. She's a ninja, then she turns into this. And, there's enough time to explain, something like Everything Everywhere All at Once, like some really dense movie with a lot of activity. And just think about what that would do for somebody who is blind. You can do this in real time on any screen for any video, including live sports. So, you have a sportscaster, and we're sportscasting here. Sportscasting could be done better by a computer, by an AI. So if Bard does this for a Warriors game, you can say, you know what, who I really like when George Michaels did this, or somebody who's passed away who was a sportscaster. And you could have some sportscaster describe what's happening in the game and clone their voice. And man, that might be really interesting, huh?
Yeah, it's probably, like, I think it starts off in like maybe different languages versus that, because like, if you watch NFL and you get to watch a game that Tony Romo is sportscasting, you get his knowledge of football and being a recent football player, which I don't think the AI can replicate
I don't
just
know
yet.
about that. If you could have Jimmy the Greek, right, who is very famous, Monday night commentator that people loved, and nobody remembers Jimmy the Greek, but I do because I'm Greek, and it was like a big deal to have somebody called Jimmy the Greek. But don't start calling me Jason the Greek. I mean, you can if you want. Anyway, Jake Al the Greek. You could bring him back and have him doing Monday Night Football. You could actually probably get all of his insights from previously and get his real-time reaction.
I mean, if you took a model and fine-tuned it with all his previous commentary combined with video with a multimodal, that's actually an interesting idea.
Muhammad Ali doing, MMA fighting or boxing. Yeah. And, what about having Steve Jobs? I mean, listen, when we talk about the recently dead, I want to just be clear here to family members, et cetera, who might be watching, or, friends of his. I'm not making light here, but sincerely, like, are we eventually going to have people who've moved on and passed on, like do a keynote or send a message? And they did that with Tupac, right? He did a tour. Yep. So I think this is a very hard decision.
I think they did like a what do you call hologram thing, a holographic. I mean,
so if Tupac can come back, could, Steve Jobs come back? It might be too soon. It might be too painful for people, but eventually could Steve Jobs come back and release the next Apple product? It's so many ethical, moral, emotional things to think about there, but we seem to be on the cusp of that. The other thing, I was so impressed with what they showed with Gemini. The one I found really interesting is multimodal, where they took a math test. So maybe we could pull that video up, and my team can do it too. But they were explaining the reasoning in math and physics. All right, so this is super interesting. Here you see they are taking a picture of the answers.
And explain the concepts that.
So it scored the test, Sandeep. Scored the test.
Identify some mistakes with problems 1 and 3 here. Let's take a look at 3.
That's incredible. Teachers no longer have to score tests. That's a big part of the job.
That the formula was correct, but there was a mistake in calculating height. We can ask Gemini to explain in more detail.
That's powerful.
Why the height is 50 meters instead of 6.
Yeah. Not even teachers so much, parents. Like, I don't know if you ever have to kind of help with homework. Like, sometimes you like really got to dig deep back, and especially as they're getting into algebra and calculus.
But like, let's say here, they've identified which question got wrong. Then they're looking at your solution as a student
and finding,
and they're finding your mistake and then explaining to you how to fix it.
Yeah.
This is an example of the teacher doing their work when they're not in the classroom, which is scoring tests. That's done. Then sometimes the teacher will circle the place where you made the mistake. That's done, the detail. And then you have to get tutoring and you have to do corrective work to not get it right the wrong time. Those are 3 components of work humans do that has now been replaced by an AI. So let's just think about teachers in general. Now teachers don't need to score tests. The test would be scored in real time. So you take your test up to the front of the class, and they literally just put the test in front of a webcam.
Yep.
You have a webcam facing down. They just put it there, move, put it there, move, put it there, move, and it's sent to you. What your score in real time, what you got wrong. They could send you to another room to go over the answers, then have you come back and take 3 new versions of the 3 questions you got wrong and rescore your test. So think what that does for education. There were those really cool teachers who would let you retake a test.
Yes.
Because they wanted you to do the best possible. Yeah. You could be doing that in real time.
You would learn more by fixing it and coming back than you're doing the real learning. But it's not scalable. If they have to do that for 20, 30 students, they can't. This is a great aid for teachers. I think it's even a greater aid for students because they can sit there while they're doing their practice, their homework. And, when they get something wrong, they can highlight, why they got it wrong and explain to them how they should have done it differently.
Starting a business used to be such a painful process. You needed to get a lawyer. There were tons of fees. It was a mess, but not anymore. Just check out Northwest Registered Agent. They're going to help you form your company fast. Remember, speed matters. And then they're going to get you the docs you need to open a business bank account instantly. Then they're going to provide you with mail scanning and a business address. And they're going to do all that, keeping your personal privacy intact. Northwest can form LLCs, corporations, and nonprofits. And here's why. Founders love Northwest. There's no hidden fees. There's no upselling. You can call them or cancel at any time. And Northwest has the best of both worlds solution. It's simple and self-serve, but they can be hands-on if you need help with their amazing registered agent service. Northwest provides everything you need to start and maintain your business. And they're giving Twist listeners a 60% discount. For just $39 plus state fees, they'll form your LLC, corporation, or nonprofit. So visit northwestregisteredagent.com/twist today. northwestregisteredagent.com/twist. All right. So we should give a score for Gemini here.
Yeah.
I have to say, I was blown away. I think that they have leapfrogged ChatGPT 4.0 in some modest ways. And obviously on the tests, like there's a battery of tests. I'll have you explain that in a second and pull up the list so people understand how that works. They seem to have smashed ChatGPT 4. Smashed. Now, who knows if ChatGPT 4 is going to take this lying down or not? I suspect they won't. And maybe they'll drop like a 4.1 or a 4.5 to smash Bard back and smash DeepMind back. But this to me means Google's in the game. They're taking it seriously. I mean, people are not going to believe this, but I'm giving this an A+. Because
okay, I'm going to pull up the benchmark. Okay.
Yeah,
A+. Wow.
I'm giving it an A+ because I do think to surpass OpenAI on this many items, even though I think the interface is still janky and needs work, and they don't even have an app and they don't even have a brand, and it's just confusing. And, you know, I'm rating this release as an A+ release. Let me say that.
Okay. Wow.
Now, product-wise, I think ChatGPT is still a better product because their interface is an 8.5 of 10, and I give the Google interface like a 4 or 5. I mean, the Google interface looks like it was not made by anybody. It looks like they literally went with some default template, you know, like that was built into like WordPress a decade ago, right?
What are the differences you see between the Bard interface and the ChatGPT interface?
Okay, so first and foremost, majority of people and majority of work, consumption, and creation is now being done on smartphones. So I always judge it on the app and work backwards.
Okay.
There is no app.
That's huge. There's no app. There's no app.
So that means you lose of 10 points, you immediately lose 5. So now you're at a 5.
Yeah.
Now we're going to just grade you on your web and your web-based app.
Yeah.
When you pull up Bard in a web app, when you pull it up on your desktop, it looks cluttered, confusing. They just put it under the Google taskbar, you know, with all the accoutrement. It doesn't have its own look and feel. So I'm minusing a point for that.
Okay.
And then I don't think the pagination and the formatting are as clean and crisp looking, and the fonts and the typography. I'll take a -1 on that too. So I give them a 3 of 10, actually, now that I'm doing my interface. Okay. 3 of 10.
Well, you know what? Now, I was kind of looking at it different, but sorry, go ahead.
And then I just think ChatGPT, if you use that app, it is so polished that it's delightful to use. I've been using Dolly now to write my blog, to make my blog post headers. And my illustrations on my last 2 blog posts look like $1 million. If I had hired an illustrator to do that, it would have been $5,000 per illustration, I think. At a minimum, $1,000. You couldn't do what I just did in Dolly. You can pull them up, my team, in a minute. But if you go to calicanis.substack.com, I'm doing a weekly startup post, and I changed my list to Jason on startups or something. And just the 2 header images are gorgeous. So let's talk about scores here. Let's talk about scores. And by the way, just hire somebody to do the mobile interface. Samurai Sergey. I need you, Samurai Sergey, to take out the sword. Whoever's on the design team, you just cut the team in half, fire them, and then you find an external team that's great at making apps, and you ask them to make 3 versions. You give them $5 million, and then you come back to your team and say, why aren't we as good as this independent firm? And then you pick the people from that firm and you give them an offer they can't refuse. And you go Samurai Sergey. It's pretty
straightforward.
Samurai Sergey.
All right.
You coach him.
Samurai Sergey. Let's do it. So, you know, a couple of things there, Jacob. We don't have access to Ultra yet, right? So what we're playing with in Bard is Pro. So Pro, you can see here across the board, scored lower than GPT-4. Okay. And so even though in your experience, you're feeling like it's equivalent.
Explain to people what they're seeing on the left there. Math, big breach, hard. What is this? I know what it is, but explain to everybody.
So there's, I think there's eight critical benchmarks that people use to score different models. And what you can see here in this chart that I have pulled up is Gemini Ultra and Gemini Pro versus GPT-4, 3.5, Palm 2, Claude 2, Inflection, Grok 1, and Llama. And so these are kind of all the major LLMs that are out there right now. And it's, changing rapidly. And what we see here is Gemini Ultra on almost all benchmarks scored higher than GPT-4.
Can you give us an example of but one of these benchmarks and what it is actually testing?
The simplest one, which is the one we were just looking at, is GSM 8K, which is grade school math.
Got it.
Right? And so that's the second one in this chart that I'm looking at. You can see that GPT-4 gets 92% of the questions right, and Gemini Ultra gets 94.4. Now,
so this is, to be clear, they took grade school math, and they have a battery of questions, like a standardized test. So this is kind of like the SATs, or I forgot what we called them in New York. I think they were called your regions. But these are your testing. These are your tests. Yes. Everybody takes the same test, and it's basically not, you can't cheat on it, essentially.
Well, so that's a very good question you asked. You are not allowed to include the test in your training material. Because if you include the test in training material, you'll probably get 100%. So the researchers and people that are doing this have to hold to that standard and say, hey, you cannot include any of the questions from any of these different benchmarks inside the training material.
And I like this, MMLU, multiple choice questions in 57 subjects, professional and academic.
Correct.
And this was done by some university or some researchers, correct? And then they put this out in the world. And if we look at that one, Gemini Ultra, 90% on this multiple choice test. Gemini Pro, 79%. Okay, great. ChatGPT, 87%. So Gemini was, whatever it is, a couple of
Gemini was an A student, and GPT-4 was a B+ student.
Got it. But what's interesting about this is if you go down, Grok 1 is at 73 already, and that's under 6 month old. Claude's been at it for a while. They're at 78%. So they're not applying themselves well enough. And then Llama 2, which is Zuckerberg's one, that's an open source. Am I correct?
Yes, correct.
Is at 68%. And so we're seeing open source far behind the class. Be interesting to see if they catch up.
Well, but the thing, can I just comment on that? The idea with Llama 2 is it's not meant to be a model you use out of the box. It's meant to be a model you take and you fine tune. And we don't have it in this example, but I'd be willing to guess there's a Llama 2 fine tune that can score higher than both GPT-4 and Gemini Ultra on MMLU, which is the multiple choice. Why isn't the Falcon
project on here? I guess it's not doing as well, or they didn't think of putting it on here. I wonder.
I don't know for sure, but my guess is it's not scoring as high as any of these other projects right now.
Yeah. Okay. So, great. So this is amazing. What you find here is ChatGPT-4 has not run away. I think what we've learned now is, as an organization, OpenAI has an Achilles heel, right? The Franken corporate structure, the Franken structure.
The Franken
and
structure.
And then also, there are two other criteria. There's the core power of the language model, which we're seeing here in these tests, and ChatGPT and OpenAI can be beat. That's what we've determined with this, correct? They're beatable.
I think that was the biggest thing last week, which is folks got comfortable that, what ChatGPT had wasn't, magic, or it wasn't so far of a technological lead that it couldn't be caught up. And the fact that someone else got there means other people can get there as well, which means we're heading towards commodity.
Which you have always said. That's always been your position. And what's very interesting about this is, if you look at this chart, GPT-4 was trouncing the other competitor. So when you compare Claude to ChatGPT-4, GPT-4, Claude, or to Llama, or to Palm, it really did feel insurmountable. There are scores here, 92 to 80, 92 to 88, 52 to 34. I mean, these were big leads. But then so there's that piece. Then there's the piece of user interface. And then there's the piece of proprietary data. Mm-hmm. And so if we were to look at those, ChatGPT 4 and OpenAI team, they have some, I don't know who the web designers are in there. Somebody tip us off of who's designing the app for OpenAI, but that's the person Samurai Sergey's got to poach. They got to get in there and steal the design team from OpenAI and just double their salaries and double their options and get them on the team, or find somebody who can. So they've got a massive lead there, but that's an easy one to close. And then they've also, the question is, who's got the lead on data? So I need you to answer that question for me, because the language models are at parity. The interfaces can be at parity, but the data, that doesn't seem like it can be parity. So explain.
Well, so I think this answer comes in two parts for me. And it's actually, one of the parts come from your recent interview with David Luan from Adept. Mm-hmm. And you did a great job. I want to give you credit as one of my favorite Twist episodes. And David shared just a little bit of kind of nuggets along the way as you were interviewing him. And one of the nuggets that he shared was, in terms of the training material, it wasn't all public information. They went in licensed information.
Yes.
And one of the things that might have happened, and this is like speculation, but I think we see it sounds reasonable, which is prior to the explosion of, last November 30th of ChatGPT, and then early next year with ChatGPT-4 or GPT-4, if you were some organization and this open nonprofit shows up and said, hey, we want to license some material for you, you'd probably be like, yeah, sure. You want to pay us some money? You're doing some kind of nonprofit research. Great. They may, and they have a contract for it, and it's all good. I think, that's an interesting thing in terms of what they were probably able to do in a past life. And what we're seeing now is, over the last, even the weekend and last week, some people were complaining about GPT-4's capabilities are coming down. And that may be, some of that material may be having to come out of the training material. They may be updating their models, and we'll talk about that in one of these demos that are coming up. And so I think between OpenAI being at this for a long time and their approach, and then Google with just their vast access to information, being kind of the company that organizes the world's information, they both had this interesting approach. What I will say, and I tweeted this yesterday, I'm saying right now, GPT 3.5 has been commoditized. So, and we're going to do a demo for coming up next. And it's using a specific model we'll talk about, but I just want to say here, GPT 3.5 level models been commoditized. There's nothing special about them.
Wow. Okay. This is big news, folks. And this is great news for the overall ecosystem, correct? Now startups are not beholden to OpenAI. When the APIs become more rich and the costs go down, this is all going to be commoditized in the same way storage has. This was a big question. If you paid a lot of money to invest in OpenAI, buy the secondary shares, and listen, I'm not trying to screw up anybody's deals here, but if you invested in a large language model at a very large dollar amount, I'm concerned about your investment. Now, you have downside protection because even if you invested in something at 10 billion, 20 billion, you have the preference stack. So don't cry for any of these folks. They knew that going in. But the fact is, a large language model on the internet is worth $1 billion if it's one of the top 5. It's not worth $100 billion. Am I correct with that statement, you think? You believe that?
I think you're great. I think you're right?
But literally last year, you would value a large language model at 50 billion, 25 billion, 100 billion, because there were only 2 or 3 really good ones.
Yes.
Now there's going to be 50 good ones. Probably. What do you think? And there'll be 50 worth $1 billion, and none of them you wouldn't even be able to tell the difference between them for 9 out of 10 searches. Am I correct?
I don't think we're going to be able to tell the difference. And that's maybe, it's a good jump off point, Jake, to the next thing.
Okay, here we go, everybody. More demos coming. Do we need to give a score to anything? You didn't give your score for this release by Google. So in totality, I gave it an A+, because Samurai Sergey just proved he just commoditized the market.
Yeah.
DeepMind commoditized the market.
I'm only going to give it a B+ until we get API access to, Pro, which is coming on Wednesday. And then and I want to also reserve until we get to actually play with Ultra, because we haven't had a chance. And so, but I do think they haven't, this is like the example you gave of, you get to come back and get your score updated. So either they release like an updated video of Gemini Ultra kind of doing it all like as they showed in that video, or they just release it to us developers in a limited sense, and you can move your way to an A+. All
right. And that David Luan episode is 1855 if you're looking for it, folks. It'll be linked in the show notes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so next, I'm going to just jump around in our notes to this because it's a natural flow, and then I'll come back to the next thing I want to show you. Right. So next, this weekend, the team at Mixtral released another new model, and it's called the 8x7B. And you can play with this model at Poe. So one of the things that, if you're a subscriber to Poe, you're able to pick which model you want to chat with, and they have like all kinds of models there. They have API access to GPT-4, they have Claude, and so it's
so you don't need to have an API key. They abstract that. They use their API keys. You pay them, then they figure it out. Yeah, and I got to go get a subscription to Poe because and Poe is by Cora, which is Adam D'Angelo.
Yes.
Who would be great to have. We should have a guest. We should do like a Tuesday with a guest, you and Adam. So let's do it. Let's do Adam on a Tuesday, and we'll have a back-to-back. But it'd be great to just go through Adam and his thinking. But he's also the one on the board of OpenAI and at the center of all that nexus of chaos the last couple of weeks. Not that he caused the chaos, but he was there in the room where it happened.
It was happening, and he was there.
He was there. Yes, he was at chaos adjacent.
All right. So why this model is really interesting, and this is when I saw this model and I got to play with it, it basically led me to the conclusion, which I said 3.5 has been totally commoditized now. So this is what's called a mixture of experts model. So this is 7 billion models working together. And why this is really interesting is in a few ways. One, when the models are smaller, the resources that you need to run them become much easier to obtain, and the resources required to train them become much easier to obtain. And so generally a rule of thumb that you can use is if you look at a model size and if it says 7 billion, you need 70 billion tokens to roughly train it, 10x the amount of parameters to train it. And so when you get these really large models that are 70 billion, 270 billion, you need trillions and trillions of tokens, which then leads to you need very, very specific compute clusters that only a few people in the world have. When you have the smaller models, you can use much more kind of readily available compute to train these things. And what Mixtral released with this model is a mixture of experts, and this is generally considered how OpenAI is structured. I think, they may have changed it recently, but before people were saying it's like 620 billion models working together. So they did 7 billion models. And what they were able to show is 7 billion models can outperform Llama 270B. They can outperform 170 billion parameter model.
Okay.
And that, as we saw on the previous one, the Llama 270B was lower in score, but it's designed to be fine-tuned. And if you fine-tune it, you could probably get it up to, matching all the other better models. And now that you can take a smaller model, which is much more realistic for smaller companies to run and fine-tune, the 3.5 era is commoditized. And so you can play with it here. And I gave it, say, tell me about the founding of Atari. And it was able to tell me, who founded it and what went on. And you can run it through the benchmark. But the key thing here, talking about, Poe and this Mixtral model, is the open source community combined with Mixtral has found a way to take on these large models. And just 1 year ago, GPT 3.5, ChatGPT was announced. Now we have an open source model that anyone can take and fine tune and run without having ridiculous infrastructure. And you have the equivalent of what ChatGPT was a year ago. So I'll pause there and let you react to that and ask me questions.
Yeah, I mean, here we are. I just subscribed to Poe. I paid $199 for the year.
Yes,
and
$200.
While we were talking, I was like, well, that's a decent
ARPU.
Well, I mean, it's the cheapest I'm going to spend, and I want to be up to date on all the models. So the fact that they have abstracted it, so let me just open up the conversation to Poe, generally speaking.
Yep.
I've been looking for this because, like this show kind of helps you level up. I feel like letting people see everything is great. And then they also have bots, and they let you create bots and stuff like that.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's kind of what you're...
That was a little bit of the tension that was there with GPTs got launched, right? Because they had just launched these bots, and then GPTs got launched like literally a few weeks later. So that was part of the speculated tension. Maybe we can ask Adam about it directly.
Well, I mean, also no conflict, no interest, right? We always say that here in Silicon Valley. So listen, you're on the board of this thing. Who knows who's an investor? Maybe, Sam has shares in Quora. Maybe Quora's got a licensing deal with OpenAI and they're sending $1 billion back and forth. Who knows? I think Quora's got this incredible data set. I think what Quora should do is come up with a revenue model for people like me who are super answerers in the system. Like I did a thing with Quora twice where they had me do a live Q&A, like an AMA, and I just took 25 questions, and it really builds their corpus up with an expert.
Yes.
So, I did, and it grew my following on Quora. Now, I never figured out how Quora would work for me, how it would help me. I'm sure people see my answer there, and maybe I get a little bit of play, but I know that people who are lawyers, accountants, real estate people, they love answering questions there and putting bullet points on it because it makes them famous, right? So if you're not famous, you can become a famous real estate broker in New York City by sharing your knowledge, right? And being number one there, and then people call you, they know your name, they see it, you can send your profile to people. But what if every time my answers were used in an LM, I got a licensing fee. So as the number one angel investor, early stage investor, and you as the number one, AI developer, and Susie as the number one, tech lawyer, and John as the number one real estate agent, every time they got their licensing fee at Poe, they distributed to us as being, X number of answers in the corpus, X% of real estate or whatever, $10,000 a year.
The Spotify for everyone else. The Spotify for everyone else.
Spotify for everybody else. Spotify for knowledge. Right? Where is that model? And I think that Adam could do that, where he just said to folks, hey, we know, here's the verified list. So if you move to verified on Quora, and we know your credentials, we have your driver's license or passport, we know it's really a human, you're not stealing the answers, and you've done over 100 answers, and you've been on the system more than 2 years, you get into the licensing pool. And if you want to be in the licensing pool, you got to be an expert and get this much. Just take that, and then for all time. And then they could be telling me, hey, if you do 100 questions, we'll pay you in advance.
Yep.
These are 100 questions we want to have in the corpus. If you answer these 100, we'll give you $100 each. We'll give you 10 grand. And then that'll be against your earnings in the future. There's a really interesting model there that could work.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. I think, what you talked about is sort of what Sam hinted at with GPTs.
Yes.
And, we demoed them as soon as they came out. And I think, the enhanced ability of Quora / Poe is that they're not limited to offer it with just the OpenAI model. Because you can mix and match, and you can have models that are lower cost to run, that maybe the monetization is better on, because they don't have, when, it's Mixtral, they don't have to pay as much money to OpenAI for using ChatGPT, especially GPT-4, which is quite expensive. So,
to recap what we just saw, the high order point here is there is a new model that has commoditized the 3.5 level.
Correct.
And it's essentially now free to use these.
Yes, you can run it on pretty standard compute, and
define pretty standard compute. A MacBook Air M2.
I'm saying for a service, right? So for a develop, if you want to run a service, you're going to run it in the cloud. You don't need to go and procure a farm of H100s to run it.
Got it. So you can run this with just standard CPUs.
You should use, but you should use GPUs, but you don't have to buy the latest and greatest from NVIDIA that has. So when the models get bigger, JCal, you definitely need to use the bigger chips because they have a huge memory footprint that's required to run them. And we're going to show that in the next demo when you're trying to run these things. So when they're really, really big, you have to have a memory interconnect amongst these chips, and they have to run in racks and even, more even beyond
because
racks,
you're
multiple
giving it
racks.
Big chunks of information
Correct.
At a time to process, and it just can't be done without.
Yeah.
It's not going to read that from a hard drive. That'd be far too slow. It needs to have really high speed memory. What do they call the memory now? There's a specific name for the memory chips inside of these GPUs. I forgot the name of it.
It's VRAM, VRAM, for that they use for inside GPUs. But the idea is that when you get these large frontier models, 100 billion, 200 billion, 300 billion parameters in size, they are hundreds of gigabytes, even approaching, a terabyte. Well, a terabyte of memory, as you remember, even from your days working in the computer lab, a single computer can only support so much memory. So what you have to do is have multiple machines, stitch them together, have them working amongst each other and very close, so you can support it. When the models become smaller, they can all fit on a single machine. That really lowers the type of hardware that you have to go after to running these things.
Got it. Awesome. Okay, let's continue.
Okay. And so, last thing just on Poe, these are the different models that you can access if you're using Poe today. You can use GPT-4, Playground, Claude Instant, DALL-E, Mistral, when I was just showing you there, Claude 2 with 100K. So all the different models. So it's really, really great to leverage if you want to try the different models and get on the subscription tier, $200 a year.
Great. Awesome.
Right.
So I guess we got to grade that.
Yes.
Feels like a B+. I don't know. What do you feel?
Well, I'm going to grade two different things. I'm going to grade Mistral 7B. I'm going to grade Mistral 7B as an A+.
Okay.
Because it will, like I said, commoditize the 3.5 level.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to give it an A for that. If that's how we're basing it. Okay, I'm going to give it an A.
And then Poe, I'm going to give Poe, it kind of suffers a little bit of UI wonkiness in the same way. It's like very engineer, kind of like tech heavy. So
it is.
I think it's a great tool. It's quite powerful. It has lots of different ways for you to try all the different models all in the same place. And so I think from a UI perspective, I kind of knock its grade down to probably a B. But I think the fact that they just make it all available, all the different models, they have all the partnerships done. Some they run locally, some they run with other startups in the ecosystem. So I think it's like a B right now, but if they continue to improve it.
Yeah. I give Poe a B. But I will give them credit that they do have like a desktop app now and they have mobile apps.
Yeah.
So I think that Adam understands consumers pretty well. Now, when you do
and they
these
have a monetization
apps,
model. They have a good monetization model, right? That, people can participate in.
Yeah. Explain the model of bots and what they're doing.
So the different bots can exist like either as core language models, or you can take one and you can fine tune it. So you can create the thing that you were talking about. So you can create the JCal bot that is trained on your books, maybe all the episodes, and it's been fine tuned, and you can put it up there, and then people can use it, and basically you can monetize it that way.
You'll like this one. Let me share this. I'm going to share my screen. I may have to go B- now. I may have to go to a C because of this. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
That's a joke. But I just asked their photo_create_e, which is one of their bots operated by Angel A. Chen. It's got 12,000 followers.
Or Angela Chen. Maybe Angela Chen.
Yeah. 197. Just I said, hey, she asked, hey, can I create images with your prompt? And I said, make me a handsome version of Jason Calacanis.
Yeah.
And it came out with this chubby version of me as like, I don't know, like some dude in San Diego who's, going to get sushi.
Okay. This is good because we have a kind of an updated version of this. And let me just share the monetization model here. I can't. You're going to have to kill the share.
Well,
so
here,
I can
I'm just
share.
going to ask him to make him thinner. Let's see.
Okay. Let's see what it does.
Generating it is, I will say, it's pretty fast. And,
that is not good.
That's not good. I said, make him thinner, and it made a pig horse in a suit. Because I said, make he thinner. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. So this one is clearly hallucinating. But I'm still going with Poe as a B, and I'm going to do it.
Okay.
Let's do a deep dive into Poe when we have Adam here.
For sure.
So let's get Adam on the call.
All right. And just on monetization, I want to close it up. It's up to $20 per user that subscribes. And so if you put your model in here, you can make $20 a user. You have 1,000 subscribers, you're going to get $20,000 a month. Great.
Okay. Here we go.
Yeah. All right.
Like it.
Okay. This one is really interesting. It's been going around the internet. I'm going to see your reaction. We're going to get like a JCal Reacts moment here.
Here we go. Live.
Okay. All right.
And direct.
Let me just live and direct. Okay. So one of the things that I've been seeing kind of in the last couple of weeks, like really kind of uptick in, is folks creating these influencers. And
this is a big deal.
So this, it's a good lead up here because what I did was I created a Colab workspace. This is a Google product. It's sort of like a different version of Replit, but it's all within the Google Exactly. It's an IDE that has access to compute. And what I did, I was able to basically get a model. In this case, the model that I am using is called Juggernaut XL. So this is what would be called like a fine tune of Stable Diffusion, right? SDXL, Stable Diffusion XL. So it's a fine tune, and the fine tune's been really kind of focused on making people. And so let me go back here. And what I did was I used this framework called Focus, and basically Focus lets you run these models locally. You can see here in this little interface, when you kick this off, a model gets pulled in. That model is about 6 gigs in size. You see that right here, 6.62 gigabytes.
Yep.
And you can see its utilization, how much GPU RAM it's using, system RAM it's using, and whatnot on the right-hand side here. And so now what I have is I have a my own model running that I downloaded from Hugging Face. On my own, hardware that's in the cloud, right? In this case, it's in Google's cloud. Nothing too spectacular. Like I don't have to pick like H100s or anything like that. And so let's say blonde woman standing in front of the Eiffel Tower.
All right, this can get dangerous. I can see this getting dangerous quick.
Yeah, we might have to edit this out if it goes wrong on us, but it should be fine.
Let's be careful, folks. This could go. I mean, no, this is true, though. When you do DALL-E, it has a lot of rules. You can't do a regular person. You can't do nudity. You can't get too risque. But I do see people releasing AI, pinups, let's just say, or even more graphic. And people are doing this. I see a lot of women doing it online, like as a joke, like professional women. Are like trying to make LinkedIn photos, and then it comes back with something that looks like they're a runway model, and they're like, not exactly appropriate. So here is a stunningly beautiful, almost impossibly perfect.
Well, it's still working. It's still working.
It's not, but even at halfway mark, it's like Scarlett Johansson in a very revealing dress, nightgown. I'm trying to figure out where it's going with this.
The left-hand side's a little bit more PG, but like I think they're both okay. That's just a really nice dress.
Okay, I mean, listen, these are not, you wouldn't use these. These would be fine if you were going out for a night on the town. These, going to the club, but you wouldn't, this is not an outfit you would wear in a professional setting. Yeah,
but if you're an influencer, you might wear something like this.
But an influencer would certainly wear something like this. This would be the average Instagram influencer's photo.
And so here you go. So like, we just did
that's super impressive. And I guess my question is to you, Uncanny Valley, if you were scrolling, not stopping and pinching and zooming and like doing like a detailed thing. But if you were swiping through Instagram, would you swipe past this and think it was a real person with a filter?
Yeah. And
yes or no?
I think you would. I think you would see this and think it's a real person. Now, we have one more demo after this I want to do, but let me show what you can do here. So I downloaded that picture and let's just change it. Let's say in front of Eiffel Tower. Let's pick something else. Let's say, how about say,
I don't know, beach or New York City.
Yeah, doing a yoga pose on the beach, right?
Okay, great. Well, now here we go. This could get a little risky, folks. So we'll try to keep it. I hope it keeps it PG.
And so basically what I've done now is I've said, I want to say, same thing. I'm going to give it an image input. So it's the model's going to use this person. And I've obviously changed it doing a yoga pose, on the beach wearing yoga clothing. So like hopefully all that comes true for us.
Amazing.
And
so the first one you did of an influencer, it picked a Caucasian, blonde, whatever. That was its own ideas. We didn't tell it that.
Correct.
And now you're using that as the foundational.
Because that's the influencer that I want to have. Right. And so
here it goes. Here's somebody in a yoga pose, which is on a beach. And it looks reasonable. And not too risque.
It should be a version of her, the first one that we created. And I want you to think about this, Jason, in terms of like, the world of Instagram and, everything that we've seen in our world and like the simplicity by which like these things can be created now. And what is your reaction to this? And what does this mean to content? So a person's been around content for a very long time.
Here's what I would say. If you are a yoga brand, let's say in your first year, and so you're, Lululemon and it's a startup, 20 years ago, to do these images for your catalog would be a $20,000 photo shoot. You'd
plus the flights, plus. Right?
Well, I'm saying $20,000 all in. You would book a model. You would need a hairstylist, hair and makeup. You need a photographer, a photographer's assistant. I'm just giving you like a baseline. And let's say you probably need 3 models because you were doing a catalog or whatever. And you need a wardrobe, hair and makeup, pull permits, security, photographer's assistant, and, photographer's assistant would handle lighting, and then you have to develop the film, et cetera. So it'd be a $20,000 process. And, you'd also need a location scout to find the place. And you'd have to pull a permit to take pictures there. If you were going to have lighting, or typically if you're putting a tripod or lighting down, that's when you need to get a permit. If you're just filming and, it's for you personally, you're probably not going to have an issue. So this is why people use like a Canon 5D or like those kind of handheld ones, because if anybody comes and those things can do low light and everything, you're just like, no, it's just for personal use. We're just, I'm an influencer.
Got it. It's not a whole,
Now, when influencers came out, this dropped down to, let's say, $500 to $1,000 for a suit. People would have their own, they would get their own wardrobe. So let's just call it $1,000 for the day. Instead of paying $1,000 a day for the model would do it for free for credit to put it on their Instagram, or maybe give them $100 per diem. So it went down 95%. Now you've gone down 100%. You now are at free. And so the question is, if you're a Lululemon in year one, or the competitor to that, you can make an unlimited
up-and-coming brand on Shopify. Up-and-coming brand on Shopify.
You literally don't need models, and you could be doing your pictures based on an editorial calendar. And if F1 was happening in Vegas, you could make these people doing yoga, in front of one of those F1 cars, or you could have the same models, at Fashion Week in Milan or New York. You could have them at Art Basel. So now you're traveling around the world with a cohort of models. You own 100% of their identity and their rights, and it takes one person an hour a day to do this. It is insane. This is saving millions of dollars in marketing collateral. So this is called marketing collateral in the business. Okay. And this is the end of needing to hire models. So if you did hire a model, you'd be hiring them because they were unique to the brand. So Suki Waterhouse, I met her one time at a party in LA, quite charming. And she's like an influencer, musician, etc. You're getting a brand endorsement from that person because she's hip and she's got this incredible fan base, etc.
Yep.
Kim Kardashian fan base, traffic. But for the next tier, you can't afford to pay them $500K or $50K, whatever they get. I think it's probably $50K to $500K per engagement. People aren't going to pay that. And so,
or what if Kim made a model that was of her and made it available to download for use?
Like Cameo. I think that if it was for non-commercial use, it'd be fine. And then the second you go into commercial, you got to pay a little bit more. So I think Cameo came up with this. I saw somebody was using Russ, the guy who plays Russ Hammerman or whatever that guy's name is, the Trace Comma guy with the folding doors. That guy was doing a bunch of stuff for acquired.com. And he was doing it for Andrew Gazdecki. And he would make it like really funny, Andrew Gazdecki, and he would do it in the Russ Hammerman voice. And it was hilarious. And I think like he could use that to promote his company. And instead of paying $50 a Cameo, you pay $500 or something. So I was talking to Steve from Cameo, and like they just basically came up with a tier for sort of commercial work. And I think you can use it for 1 year. So just, a set of rights. Like Kim Kardashian could let you do it on your site. And it's non-commercial and it's $100 an image. Or if you want to use a commercial, it's $1,000 an image and somebody just has to approve it. So there could be something like that. Kim wouldn't do it, but other people would.
Other would, Okay.
Like Grimes is doing. Grimes is doing that for music, you can make
music.
Yeah, and then actually what you would do is a royalty share. Now, royalties don't exist for e-commerce, but you could say, if you want to use this on Shopify, Shopify will make an API. Anything that sells.
Someone should do a Shopify app for this. That's a good idea.
So do it as a Shopify app. Shout out Toby, a fan of the pod. We have Toby set that up, and then let's say you put yourself. Let's say they put Kim Kardashian or Suki Waterhouse, and they say, I approve me being in these 50 outfits. And that's 50 of 250 SKUs. Anybody who sees her in the outfit gets tracked, and she gets like 10% of the sale. Like a super affiliate.
Okay.
So letter grade,
and one more demo
I'm
after
giving
this.
I got to give it an A-. I think it needs a little more refinement, but it's almost
very technical because I had to load a model in Colab and all that. But this needs
to be an app. If this was an app format, I give it an A+. Because if it was an app format, I give it an A. In this format, I give it either a B+ or an A-. I'll give it a B+. I don't want to go too crazy with my letter grade. I'll give it a B+ because it doesn't cross the uncanny valley enough for me, and it doesn't do video yet. These need to do short videos. So if I'm going to reserve a grade point for app and a grade.
Well,
some grade escalation.
I'm going to give it an A minus because the next product, we'll wrap up quickly here because we're a bit over. This is a new tool called.
I like that picture of me. I look okay. That's like medium fat JCal.
Magnific. And what it can do is you drop an image here and it's an upscaler and it will, and see what it's doing here. It's kind of.
Oh, it gave me 5 o'clock shadow.
It gave you 5 o'clock shadow and look at it improved your eyebrows and hair. Yeah.
Wait, which version is me?
This is
the
you.
one with, that's me. Okay.
That's you. And this is like a little bit older.
Oh, it meant older.
Older, because that's what I was trying to go for, because these are younger pictures, right?
Yeah, it gave me a little turkey neck.
So this is this photo of yourself.
Got it. And then you made me older.
Made you older, gave you a bit of a thing. And like it cleaned up the photo. Like it made the hair look a little bit more realistic. It fixed your suit.
Yeah, that's me at 65. Shirt. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, fix your
Not so bad.
Suit. Yeah. Okay. So then I took another one of you and I said, this is a quite young photo of you. I said,
yeah, this is me at 30. I'm about 30 years old there.
Yeah, make an older JCal.
Wow, I look so distinguished when I'm thin.
Right? Look at that.
Wow, I look like Pierce Brosnan, a little Pierce Brosnan going there. That's actually it's from 2009. It's a 15-year-old photo.
Yeah.
And did you tell it how many years you want ahead?
I just said older. I think the prompt was older. Okay. Yeah. And, and so.
Yeah. I mean, it gives me it actually doesn't, it looks like the waypoint between now and 65. So I'm 53 now. That was, was 14 years ago. So I was 40 or something.
Yeah.
Maybe I was 39 in that photo. Yeah. So 39 to now. Yeah. It's probably right in between. Not bad. Okay.
And then for the influencers we were making, and I'll just do this quickly here. We were saying there's a little bit of uncanny valley, but if you put it over them, you see here, it just gives them a little bit more realism, wrinkles, and
got it. So
just touch it
is the opposite of a touch up. This is a touch down.
Touch down to make them upscaled and more realistic.
Wow. Oh, so if you put these two things together, it's A+.
Yes.
This looks like a real yoga mom. Yes. This looks like a 40-year-old yoga mom from, Pacific Palisades, Malibu, whatever.
Watch the bicep. Watch the bicep.
Yeah. It added, instead of it all being perfectly smooth.
Yes.
I like, what I like about this? I have 3 daughters. I like not putting a standard out there that's absurd. And that's what this AI is doing, is putting out an absurd standard none of us can sort of ever achieve. And I like this, instead, I like the touchdown. I think touchdown for the win. Stop touching everybody up. Let's go touchdown.
Yes.
Let's own it. I like moving into my Harrison Ford years. I'm hoping my Clint Eastwood years. I hope I look grizzled and,
chiseled, grizzled and chiseled.
Grizzled and chiseled is what I'm going for. And I've been doing I'm starting my 2-mile run program, trying to see if I can lower my 2-mile time.
Okay.
And then just, I got my 20-pound weights over there on the floor, and
that's it.
Yeah. I just hit them once in a while. All right. This has been amazing. So for the touchdown product, I'm going to give that a B+. Yes. I'm giving the other thing a B+. You put them together, I give them an A. Yes. So, but I'm going B+ on both. I think they're both fascinating.
I think it's good. I think they've done a nice job, like making the photos look more realistic, which is not the touch up and what we see in the Instagram filters. It's like, it's an upscale, but making them more realistic. And I think it really changes the game for e-commerce entrepreneurs or folks that want to, sell products and want to have, marketing material around it. What was the term you used? You called it marketing.
Marketing collateral.
Marketing
collateral. So, marketing collateral is, let's say you had that picture from the beach yoga session and you had the 3 models. Okay, we can use this when we go to a trade show and we put that as the backdrop. Oh, on our website, it's the marquee image. And just really quickly, if we could pull up my Substacks, I'll just show you what I did here. So go to the top there. So this is Jason Calacanis on startups. And I said, this is the greatest moment in time to start a company. The greatest moment in time to start a company, ? Right now. And I explained why. And I gave it a prompt that I wanted something that would be the roaring 20s. So combine 1920s with a futuristic world, and we'll call it the roaring AI 20s. And I said, add robots, add flying cars, yada, yada, and then put the roaring 20s at top. And it did the roaring 20s. Like, it still has text. And then I said, put somewhere on this picture, start a company. So you see at that store, it says start a company.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is this took me 5 minutes because at the bottom of my story, I just uploaded a gallery of all the other versions because I thought it would be funny. So here's the Roaring 20s. This is a cyberpunk version. Start a company now. It's spelling things wrong. This one is weird. Here's another one that is a bit more like Art Deco. Next one. And I did all this with DALL-E. This one was kind of ugly. This one was Blade Runner-ish with a bunch of drones and neon. Yeah. This one was also cyberpunk neon. So anyway, these illustrations, and then if you go back to my previous Substack, I did the productivity one. And so now, in this one, I did a prompt, I wanted a bulldog in it, a cup of coffee, and a table. And so now I have like a concept here. I make these marquee images for my blog posts, and I think it makes them very appealing for people. Yeah. And I don't need to rely on somebody to make. I used to go find a GIF that I liked and throw a GIF in there, and or make a GIF from a movie. So I go find a movie I like, I download the video clip.
The greatest time ever to be an entrepreneur. All the tools just right at your fingertips. Sit there and just do it all.
Which is as good a time as any for me to just give a final plug here. Definitive.io. If you need work done by a genius, that genius would be my friend, Sandeep Madra.
And our whole team. The whole team.
Okay, whatever. The team works for you. If you go to ifonlyiStarted.com, you will see a video of me talking about, starting a company. And my team just got the domain name ifonlyiStarted.com. And so I just made a 15-minute video. And this is about Founder University. Go watch the video. Go to founder.university. We're starting this. We give people $25K checks, 2 or 3 person teams. We accept 200 teams. We give the $25K check to about 30 of them, 40 of them per cohort. So I put about $500,000 to work, $1 million to work every quarter. So about...
Great.
My budget for this is about $2 million a year.
$2 million a year, yeah. Okay.
$2 million a year is what I'd like to do at scale. That is obviously 80 companies, $25K each. So I'd like to, or 100 companies, $25K each would be 2.5. I would like to actually get this to 200 companies, 2.5 million. 200 companies, $5 million a year. So that's what I'm working towards. I want to put $5 million a year to work. In the fund. You're an LP. I'm an LP.
Yes.
In 25K checks, we take 2.5% of the company. It's the first check into the company, helps you get organized, helps you get your lawyer. And so just let us pick up the first 25K of your expenses. And then you got what's your excuse.
2.5% is like nothing,
It's nothing. And if the company shuts down and it doesn't work out, no harm, no foul. We lose 25K. You lose 6 months of your time. If it does work out, all we ask is that we get to invest in the next 2 rounds, put another 100, 250K in, so we can get that 2.5% up to 10 or 7 or 6, or whatever works out.
Whatever the number is,
Whatever the number is, the number is.
I think it's great as an entrepreneur. Love it.
I call it a pre-accelerator. And so I'd like you to do a talk at it. So, hey, producers, I want Sunny to do an AI talk and an AI segment with the Founder University companies. I've now done, I just want to let people know, 60. This year I did 60 25K checks, I think. So I'm deadly serious about this. I am investing in 100 new companies a year and doing follow-ons with 50 companies. And I think we're going to catch up to Y Combinator. I don't, listen, Launch Fund 4, launch.co/memo. There's a little bit of time for QPs to get in, but I think the accredited investor slots are filled. All right, everybody, we'll see you next time. Follow at Sandeep, follow at Jason, follow at TWI Startups. We love you guys. Give us feedback. Sonny, this has been a great joy. Now we play poker every week. We do our podcast episode every week. And then we're going to start chasing that pow-pow. Let's go.
Let's do it. We need that weather.
Let's go, everybody. See you next time.
All right.